Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Oakwood Advanced Academy alumni family. We want to welcome you welcome you, our online audience, to our second annual virtual Alumni Honors Program. I am your host, Dr. Jared Patterson. I'm president of the National Oakwood Advanced Academy Alumni Association. And we are so grateful for you taking the time out to be a part of this program. Before we get started, I want to quickly do a replay of last year's honors and share with you those individuals who weren't a part of the broadcast last year. We want to share some information with you. And those were our 2020 honorees, and we're so grateful for them also. Well, this year we have, we decided we wanted to honor some of our alumni. And one of the things that we did a couple of years ago was to, I want to say, name or give names to our awards. I think in the past we were just giving awards. And so we wanted to streamline that process. And so we came up with some awards. And of course, the 3 years that we've been doing this, we have been looking at individuals from different classes, from different parts of the country, from different eras and generations, and trying to find those alums that demonstrate that Mustang spirit. And this year is no different than the other years. And we've come up with we've found 4 great ones, I would say. Today we're glad to have 2 of those honorees with us, and we're hoping that possibly the other 2 will be able to join with us. But if not, we still honor, congratulate them. And so this year we want to. We're going to honor our Outstanding Contributor Award. And that award is generally given to an alumnus who has made a significant financial and time contribution in support of the mission of Oakwood Advanced Academy. And yet this year, our Outstanding Contributor awardee is Mr. Fred Parker. Our second award is our Excellence Award. And this award is given to an alumnus who has shown excellence in teaching, learning, research, and or leadership. And our 2021 Excellence Award honoree is Mrs. Carla Watkins, the Associate Superintendent of Education for the Southern Union. The Community Impact Award is designed to honor an alumnus who has made an extraordinary impact through time, support, or money on the local level to better their communities. And our 2021 Community Impact Award honoree is Dr. Brian Smith. And finally, we have our Spirit of Service Award. And the Spirit of Service Award is designed to honor an alumnus that has been an excellent representation of Oakwood Adventist Academy through active community service, serving with an inspirational optimism and leading the way for others through their actions and involvement. And our 2021 Spirit of Service Award honoree is Mr. Chad Harrigan. So now we are going to bring in our honorees, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our program. So on behalf of the Board of Directors of the National Oakwood Adventist Academy Alumni Association, we honor each of you for the contributions you have made and are making in your local communities and the world at large. So one of the first things, and of course, we're not wearing tuxedos and ball gowns, so this is informal. informal honors program. And so we want to start with an icebreaker that's called This or That. And I'm going to give each of you, we might have 2 rounds for this. I'm going to give you 2 things, and you'll have to choose one and explain why you made the particular choice. So we're going to start with Carla. Pancake or waffle?
Pancake.
Why?
Probably because I think that's the favorite of my children and my husband between the two. So I'm just kind of going with the flow.
Okay. All right. Next one is for Brian. Your dine in or delivery, and why?
Delivery. COVID.
I guess that was self-explanatory. All right, Carla, we'll give one more. Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple all the way. Not the droid.
I'm scared to ask Brian what he has.
Well, I have an Apple.
Okay.
I have many friends who have droids.
Okay, 2 for 2. All right. Okay, Brian, this is the last one is for you. Ice cream in a cone or in a dish?
I'd have to say in a cone because the dish won't hold enough. It has no sides.
All right.
Now, if you said a bowl, I would have chosen.
All right. There he is, Mr. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. Okay, great. And Mr. Fred Parker. I want to ask some questions that are related specifically for each individual. I want to start with you, Fred.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot. We're gonna start with you. All right. I'm looking at your bio. I saw that you were actively involved in student government, which is a great thing. You, I think it said you were student government president.
Yes, my senior year.
Okay, so we have that in common.
Okay.
That my senior year, I decided to jump out in there. I jumped out and attempt to be. I'd never been involved before. I don't think I was very popular. I didn't think I was very popular at the time. So I said, let me at least try. I also noticed that you were in the healthcare field for several years. So I say many years. Many years. More than higher ed. Which one were you in longer? Higher ed or?
It was about the same. About the same. Yeah.
Okay. So 45 years in total.
Plus, yes.
Okay. What drew you to the medical field? And then I guess the second part of that question would be, then what drew you from the medical field to higher ed?
Okay. As you all recall, back then, you had to put in your yearbook what you're going to be. Your senior year, what you're going to be. And at that time, I didn't know, but my junior year, I'd been coming to Nashville, staying with some of my parents' friends, the Bensons. And Lord Benson was an X-ray technologist in the Riverside Hospital. And so he took me over to the hospital one weekend and showed me the X-ray machine and showed me a big barrel of barium, put on his goggles that he said is so he can see in the dark. And that excited me. And so when my senior year, that's what I put under my name, X-ray technician. And that's what I started out and ended up being initially.
Okay.
And over the years, I worked in the hospitals as a technologist. And then after service, after being drafted, I I started out in education teaching, and I taught at the Medical University of South Carolina, and did that for a while. Then I went off to grad school, came back in a different capacity, was promoted as department chair of the baccalaureate and associate degree programs. Then the dean at that time saw my work, and he promoted me to assistant dean in the College of Health Professions. And left again and came back. And I came back as director of ancillary services at the Medical University Medical Center over about 6 departments. On the education side, then on the professional side, I said, I need to make more money. And so it's more money on the clinical side in healthcare. And so that's when I began my journey as director of radiology departments in about 6 or 7 different hospitals across the country.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, I want to move to Carla. You also have a background in education. I want you to kind of talk to us about your journey from your journey from just wanting to pursue education to where you are now as a administrator of education over schools in about 5 states or some more, 5 or more states, if my count's correct.
8 states.
8 states. Okay. 8 states.
Well, when I was in the academy, I did not want to be a teacher. I actually wanted to be a pediatrician, but that was short-lived because it wasn't welcoming to think about children being sick. And so I did want to work with children. And so I had an opportunity to spend some time in Seventh-day Adventist school in a kindergarten class. And that kind of just took me into the whole realm of teaching. I spent quite a few years teaching in a public school system, knowing though that at some point I would want to return to the SDA system that had given so much to me. And so I became, after several years of being an elementary school teacher and spending time being an instructional specialist, a consulting teacher, administration was my next step. And so I became the principal of an academy, spent several years doing that. And that led me to the position that I now have in the Southern Union as associate assigned to secondary. I'm so blessed to be here. And it's awesome to know that Oakwood Adventist Academy is one of the schools that I am being asked to support. So that's a win-win. Definitely. So thanking the Lord for this opportunity.
Yes, great, definitely. All right, Brian. There was one thing that really jumped out at me about you, was Tuskegee Airmen. And generally, when people think of the Tuskegee Airmen, we're thinking about the World War II generation. And just by looking at you, I know you're not World War II generation. So tell us how you got involved with, because I didn't know, I'll say this, I didn't know that, because I thought that the Tuskegee Airmen was just made up of guys that had been part of that air wing, that unit. But tell us how you became involved with the Tuskegee Airmen.
Sure. First, I'll say I'm not a Tuskegee Airman. I am a member of the group.
Okay.
I was sat down by my father, Rothaker Smith, who was a professor or teacher at Oakwood Adventist Academy at one point. He told me his story. He was a prisoner of war, World War II. But before he went to combat, his unit guarded the air base of the Tuskegee Airmen. At that time, this was back in the late 60s, they were known as 332nd Fighter Group, or the black guys who flew in the military. And I learned about them. When I got to Detroit, I actually ran into one, Alexander Jefferson, in a hobby store. And I started quizzing him about why he's buying a propeller for a P-51 Mustang. He told me he flew one. I was elated. Now, as my father sat me down, I had to go to Alexander Jefferson's house and sit with him and hear his story. And it went from Alexander Jefferson to Richard Macon to Lucius Theus. And I went to several of their homes and heard their stories. And they started looking at me like, we got to put you to work. So they started asking me to go find scholarship recipients and then doing youth programming. And that's how I got started doing youth programming here at the museum.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to ask you some questions related to Oakwood Advanced Academy and your experiences at Oakwood Advanced Academy, which is a reason why we all are here.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm going to ask the question, and you all can answer it in whatever order you would like to. All right. So the first question is, what was your most memorable Oakwood Adventist Academy experience?
I guess I can start. It's almost too many to name. I am from the illustrious class of 1985, and I couldn't go forward without saying that shout out to everyone from the class of 1985. Our class at that time was the largest on campus. I think we had about somewhere 41 students or so in our class. And so we were happy to be the largest on the campus. I think some of the experiences that I remember, and I will just continue to talk about with other alums and friends, are the choir trips. The trips that we took to Atlanta to sing. Just being involved in the choir, everybody wanted to be in the choir. Mr. Reed was the conductor, and it was the most awesome experience ever. And I think even to this day, when I talk to some of my fellow classmates, we talk about all the times that we had in choir practice. Awesome times that I will never forget and cherish forever.
There are so many things. Let's start at the beginning. I hope we never forget, back when I was there, it was Oakwood College Academy, and it was a boarding academy. And that's very important for all of us who went through that era. And so my experience, like so many, living in the dormitory, and I have to say the class of 1962 was the largest class during our time. And we're still together. I don't know, I remember Mr. Ashby, our dean. This is one of many. Mr. Ashby taught about 3 or 4 classes, spoke about 5 languages. The gentleman was about 4 feet 8 tall, even though he seemed to be 7 feet tall. Very smart, and he was our dorm dean. And one of the things that he always had funny sayings. And one of the things that always, first of all, when you would hear a train coming at Oakwood, he would know exactly that train, where it was heading by the sound or how many horns that they blew, etc. But Mr. Ashby had a lot of sayings, and I remember several of those sayings till today. And one, like when he was getting ready to give a test, he would stand up in front of the class. He said, "I hope you all came crawling today, because I am shooting waist high. And then, he just on and on. He had so many of those things. And those are things that I remember along with my experience working on the farm and in the dairy with Mr. Jacobs. Can you imagine boarding school, 14-year-old kids, getting up every morning, 3:30, going to milk cows, coming back, showering, going to lunch, getting ready because we had class in the afternoon. And do you know that we didn't have PTO, we didn't have sick time, but we all got up every day and did our jobs. And that taught me discipline, character, and I'm still early to go to meetings in class because of that training.
Okay.
So I've had the longest to think about this, and I really can't come up with really one. But graduation, I think, was a defining moment. It was a reality check. Now, I'm from the class of 1975, and there were only 25 of us that year. But I remember after the ceremony was over, I had the diploma in my hand, and I'm standing beside the academy building, looking over at the college and wondering, well, what am I going to do now? Because I felt a big, enormous challenge coming and that I wasn't prepared for it. Now, Oakwood Academy did a lot for me. As Mr. Parker said, you enter at about 14 years of age. And I was actually in the group that started out as a boarding academy. So when I entered the 9th grade, we were still boarding students. By the end of the 10th grade, that was done. No more boarding students. So students had to find residents off campus. So I went through that transition. But Oakwood Academy prepared me in so many ways. You had teachers that were giving. Now that's where I learned some of my community service skills. The responsibility I have to give back to the community was taught by the teachers and the faculty and the staff. Because it seems like they were always there. If we went to Bible camp, they were there. Choir trips, they were there. Weekends, they were there. And that's difficult when you're working, 9 to 5 every day. You want to take the weekends off. So I learned that kind of sacrifice at Oakwood Academy. I also gave my heart and made a decision to be baptized while I was at Oakwood Academy. So the spiritual aspect was very prominent there. So it helped shape me as a human being, hopefully as an asset to the community where I live now. But graduation was that defining moment. I'm leaving my home, my comfort zone, and going to somewhere else. And I think about that feeling often. Now, I think I did okay. I was prepared, especially to meet all of the things that are thrown at you other than education. The personnel issues, the boss issues, the racism issues. I never had a problem with facing those because of experiences I had at Oakwood Academy and later Oakwood College, now University.
Okay. Trying to find another question. What difference has Oakwood Adventist Academy made in your career of choice?
I can go first on that one.
Go ahead.
Because I had a change of heart in the 10th grade. When I entered in the 9th grade, I was going to be a brain surgeon. And I had this young lady friend across town I wanted to go visit. And by the time you ride your bicycle over there, you're hot and sweaty, and it's not good. So I needed a mechanized motor transportation, and in Alabama, you could ride a motorcycle at 14. So I opted to buy a motorcycle that didn't work, and I fixed it without a manual. Took it all apart, and people come by and look at the parts on the ground, and you're not going to get that back together. I got it back together, and everyone was surprised, and that awoke in me my engineering, aptitude for engineering. And through the efforts of my neighbor, Robert Sherney, and my teacher, Alfred Hampton, and of course, everyone in the community who saw my mechanical ability, I switched from medicine to engineering. That happened at OAA Academy. Now later in college, I was sitting in class and it hit me, that urge for medical. So about midway through college, I mixed the two together and did biomedical engineering.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
My transition was, I admired our principal, J.T. Stafford. And I wanted to emulate him in a lot of ways. He was even-tempered, slow to anger, very caring person. And he was very, I enjoyed the way he came to work. He was always in a suit and tie, Stetson hat, and he wore spats. And I thought that was so sharp to come to work every day looking like that. And I thought that was the way that I wanted to do. I wanted to be sophisticated. I wanted to have the respect and be kind to people and understanding. And so that has shaped me over the years. And I've had lots of mentors, but I think that was where the spark came in addition to my dad.
Okay.
For me, the interactions that I had with my teachers at Oakwood Academy were second to none. I think about teachers like T. Marshall Kelly. When I can tell people he was my teacher for all 4 years, people are like, wow. We would go to class sometimes and people would be like, how you have song service in class before you start, we would sing a couple of songs and we would be like, just you sing today. T. Marshall Kelly, we wanted him to sing Little Boy Build a Boat, all of those things. Teachers like Judy Dean, teachers like Ronald Lang. The reason why I had some type of excitement about math was from Ronald Lang. Now, geometry is not math. Now, I don't want to argue with the people who think that it is, but it really isn't. But Ronald Lang had a way of teaching it where even if you didn't like it, you knew that you had that support there. Teachers like Joyce O'Brien. So those are the teachers that, when I became a teacher, I wanted to emulate. I wanted to engage my students the way I was engaged. I wanted my students to know that I loved them and supported them through anything that they went through. They were more than just teachers for us. This was a family. And even to this day, we still talk about the teachers that we had and how we are, to this day, a family still. And that is one thing that I try to carry in every assignment that I have had.
Okay. If you could do one thing, or if you have done one, if you could do one thing, leave one mark on your current profession or in your past profession, what would it be or what was it? Based on your Oakwood Adventist Academy experience. So based on your Oakwood Adventist Academy experience, and if you could leave one mark on your current or past profession, what would it be or what was it?
I would agree that our teachers did care for us. They were like extended family, parents for us. For me, to carry compassion, to listen to students, to listen to employees, and be concerned about them in the workplace, and to be consistent in being fair. That's one of my favorite things in terms of being a servant leader, I tried to fashion my entire career as being a servant leader.
So Oakwood Adventist Academy is now K through 12, correct?
Yes.
So I have to include my mother, Dorothy Molson Smith, who was my fourth grade teacher. And she had a saying, though the heavens fall, you do what's right. And Oakwood Academy taught that sentiment, that principle, which helped me make a difference in my career at General Dynamics, even though I was being, that's where I experienced the most racism. I didn't get it in Alabama in the 70s. I got it here in Detroit, in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Just the unconscious bias that, we African Americans experience. And to fight through that, it was, I always have to do what is right. I always have to stand up for what's right, even though everything is against me. And that's one thing I credit Oakwood Academy and my experience at growing up there at Oakwood. I credit it to that.
For me, because there was so much support and unwavering love from faculty and staff at the academy, the mark that I would like to leave, I would hope and pray that those that I have engaged with, from students to faculty and staff that I have been in charge of, would also say that they know that they are loved and that they are supported, and there's no question about that.
Okay. Just got maybe two more questions for you. When we look at the educational landscape, especially as it relates to Christian education, we're seeing, I would say we're seeing a drop in enrollment at our schools across the board. And in some cases, we're seeing programs that were K-12, they're now K-8, and then, schools that were strong schools. We've seen schools close, schools that had multi-grades, now they only have, I've seen schools that may have two teachers. It goes to 8th grade, has two teachers, and one of the teachers is also the principal. And, what would you say, what argument would you make on behalf of, there's so many options out there in terms of education opportunities and that kind of thing. And what argument would you make on behalf of Christian education in a period where we're seeing these drastic changes in our Christian education landscape, based on your own life experiences?
For me, I spent 20 years teaching in the public school system. And hands down, when I compare the two, the Seventh-day Adventist Christian system is designed to prepare our students for eternity. And that was not just apparent when I was at Oakwood Academy, but that is the ongoing premise of who we are and what we do. You don't get that outside of our schools. And so above all else, if we are preparing our students for the world to come, and we want partnership in that education arena for our students, the Seventh-day Adventist school system is where the students should be enrolled.
I agree. If you want your children to be taught of the Lord, a good way to do that is to have that teaching be done on a daily basis, not just in Sabbath school and church. And the only way to get that is to go to a Christian school. Now, there are other religions that have Christian schools also, or parochial schools. But the Adventist message is so particular. They say truth is very specific. And it can get very confusing, especially when you're talking about end times, the book of Revelation. Going to an Adventist school, if done right, can give you a clear understanding of the prophecies from Daniel, Revelation, all of the, how you say, moral lessons that you get from the Bible characters, like 3 Hebrew boys. You get a very different viewpoint from Ellen White about those stories. You get the backstory, if you will. And that has been very helpful to me. When I finally sat down and read Patriarchs and Prophets, I was 35 years old. And I had to do it because I was teaching Sabbath school. It was amazing. I kind of wish I had been assigned that in high school, but the books were there. I could have done it at any time. A clear understanding of all those stories. I really had the basis, but then to get into the specifics of what Ellen White said about, those stories is crucial to keeping one grounded in Adventism. So I would send my kids, if there's nothing nearby, the only boarding school we have now is Pine Forge Academy. I would make sure they had a Seventh-day Adventist Christian education.
I'm a product of church school. My mom was a church school teacher, and I was in church school, seemed like forever, and my mother was my teacher most of my years. And to address your question, I agree with my fellow honorees, but I think your question was related to why is there a decline and what can we do to enhance or keep our schools open, if I heard you correctly, and that's a challenging question, and I think it starts, historically from my perspective, it starts with the church and trying to get our members to support our church schools by sending their children and their grandchildren. We all understand and know that Christian education, Adventist Christian education, is what we should be doing. But I too see, and I too am concerned about our Christian schools because the enrollments are declining. And I don't see, from my perspective, I don't see the push from our churches and to really support our Adventist education as a whole. Our superintendent will have, I guess, a better perspective.
I see the same issue, Brother Parker. I've seen Adventist pastors send their kids to other Christian schools rather than to Seventh-day Adventist schools. And when asked why, well, the kids made fun of my child, so I just sent them to it. So it starts at the top. It's a spiritual problem at the very top of our leadership in the Adventist Church.
I think to add on to that a little bit too is we can't just expect people to put their children in our Seventh-day Adventist schools if they are not deemed up to par.
Correct.
So if you are saying, oh, because it's a Seventh-day Adventist school, just put them there and they should not have any concerns or cares, that doesn't sit well with families nowadays. They see the bells and whistles that these other schools are offering and wondering why our schools are not offering the same things. And so if we're really going to attract or not just attract, but get buy-in from our churches, from our families, we have to offer what they're looking for. It may take having some conversations that are not comfortable. A few years ago, I asked a few of my friends, why is it that you're not putting, you had this wonderful experience at Oakwood Academy, why are you not placing your children in this school or in a school like Oakwood Academy if they're in other parts of the country or world? And it always comes back to the offerings. That is one thing. Are they offering the same things that are being offered in other places? And, they talk about the cost. Now we know it's going to cost, especially if you want all of the things that you're looking for. But those are the things that I hear the most. But it's going to take some open conversations and dialogues, and not just to stick with the conversation, but to move from that conversation. Now, what are we going to do? Incrementally, what are we going to do to meet the needs of what these families are looking for in educating their children?
And I think one of the things that, being a part of the Alumni Association, is one of the things that I'm very keen on is, because I graduated in '92, and I'm very keen that now that I've been involved with the Alumni Association, about keeping the legacy of our school alive. And that's, and I have buy-in now. I have two sixth graders and a second grader. So I'm vested in making sure that, because I have some of the same concerns that other parents have in terms of what are they offering, the kinds of instruction, the kinds of delivery. I have all those kinds of concerns. And one of the things that I can say about Oakwood Adventist Academy is that Oakwood Adventist Academy is on the move, and it's up to the administration and faculty and staff. They're doing their part, and I'm looking to get the alumni to say, hey, this, at the time, one room, one hallway, brick school has produced doctors and lawyers and pastors and ministers and educators and authors and entrepreneurs and nurses, all kind of public, positive motivational speakers and life coaches and community people who are involved in the community, and those kind. That people, individuals, and that's really the reason why we do these we honor our alumni. We want to show individuals, people who are actually making a difference in the world and in their communities, and to show that they came from these humble beginnings here at Oakwood Adventist Academy. And so for me, it's about legacy, and I want to keep the legacy of our school. When I look at other schools around, compared to some of the other schools, the academy is something. I don't know what is it about this area, the community, but there are other people who are vested in keeping this school alive. And after 125 years, it's still going strong, and we can only thank the Lord for that. My last question is, what is the legacy that you, as a proud alumnus of Oakwood Adventist Academy, what is the legacy that you would want to leave, that you want people to remember you?
Well, that's a tough one, but I would hope that as people who have known me from 1958 and before that, but that's when I got to Oakwood Academy, believe it or not, 1958, ninth grade. I want them to see me as a matured person, but the same person who have grown in character, spirituality, but the same Fred William Parker Jr. That I'm approachable. I love to laugh. I love to hear stories, and I'm concerned about your well-being and just the human factor in all of this, and that just a soldier trying to make it to heaven.
Yes.
So I don't think I can leave a legacy unless I become more involved. And I think I need to interface with students at Oakwood Academy, which would mean me visiting and talking about the career path that I traveled. And during those travels, I learned about other careers. So I would just be full of career information that is now actually sought after. The museum is sought after to come to a school and talk about careers in aviation and aerospace science. And that's kind of the legacy I'd like to leave at Oakwood Academy. Mine started there. I grew up, grabbing the desk because they were testing a Saturn V booster at Redstone Arsenal. So I have this love for aerospace, which is what my yearbook said. I was going to be an aerospace engineer. So that's kind of the legacy I'd like to leave: service and science.
For me, I feel truly blessed to be able to serve in a new role. And with that role, I am assigned to be on the board, the school board for Oakwood Adventist Academy. So how awesome is that, to be able to contribute in that way, with my time, my energy, just to take a few things away from Fred that he said, the God-fearing piece. I want people to be able to share that servant leadership piece, and to give more than I've ever given before. And that's not just talking about financial aspect. I'm talking about giving of time and energy. I like what Brian said about going to the school. It's something about walking in the hallway. No, it won't be the same shoebox building. We call it the shoebox. Okay. Doesn't it look like a shoebox building? So, it's not about that part of it, but so that students can see who they can become, number one, and also see that there are people that really care about us that we don't even know. There are people praying for us all over the place and want nothing but the best for our school. So to leave a legacy that Oakwood Adventist Academy was everything to me, and you can see that in the support that I am able to lend to the school.
Definitely.
Could I just add one thing?
Go ahead.
Brian, I would like to team up with you, and maybe we can get with the principal at some point in time, and the two of us can do our thing. I have experience when I was assistant dean. We were over 21 allied health programs, and we can talk about health careers. And so let's get together, and we can form a partnership, and we can offer our services.
Sounds good to me. We'll call it African American History.
Funny. But the young kids can see that, the young kids can see that old folks still have it.
That's right. I'll bring the history of the Tuskegee Airmen plus careers.
Right.
And I think that it's interesting that you all are talking about this, because I literally was talking with a younger alum who's like from the class of 2000 and something. And the idea that we were talking about was putting together some kind of, and the way you all are talking about, a youth motivational task force. And the very things that you all talked about, you said coming and talking to the kids about, and it's like almost the exact same thing we were talking about. Having alums come in and talk, because I think one of the issues that he mentioned was that a lot of times the kids only see individuals that go into like medicine or law or that kind of thing, and so he said there are other fields out there that they may not be aware of per se at this particular point in their lives. And I think that I might have to join your group, because I think we're wanting to, it's next year, we're wanting to move in that direction and do something like that. And that's something I'll be in contact with you about that, because I would like to see that happen, because there are other people that are interested in doing it. Even some of the, and you talk about bringing together the different generations. There's some younger alums that are interested in doing that also. So we'll write that down, and we'll keep that. I'll put that at the top of the list for something that we're going to do in the very near future.
Give me a call.
Yes.
Yeah, doesn't Oakwood University do a youth motivational task force still?
They have. I don't know what form it's been in since we've been in COVID, but they have. But we haven't had one at the academy, and I think that's something that we might want to start at the academy.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a call.
Yes, definitely. Once I get through this weekend and get some rest, then we'll start thinking about the next term. But we definitely want to thank each of our honorees for taking the time out to be with us and to talk with us. And I said this at the beginning at some point. Prayerfully, we will invite them to return to the Oakwood Adventist Academy campus when we're celebrating our 126th years of quality Christian education. I think, it's important, I think, that our alums come back and see the progress. A lot of times people, for years, people doubt it because, they had been talking about Christian education. Even before I came to the academy, people were talking about building a school. They built a third of the school, and then they built 2/3. But now the entire campus is finished. The high school building is open. And I think it would be good for alums to come back and actually see, not hear about it, but actually see the progress. Walk through the elementary, walk through the multi-educational center, which they have, they've done some things. They added, even this year, they added the Alumni Association bought a scores table for the athletic program. They have screens. They put not a food court, concession stands. They just built a concession stands in the lobby. It's on the move. There's some lockers. I forget. It was mentioned this morning that I don't know if it was class of 74 or 75, but which one of those classes sponsored some lockers, and those lockers will be installed either over the Thanksgiving holiday or over the Christmas holiday. And it's all about people seeing the progress. So most definitely, hopefully, prayerfully, at some point when this pandemic lets up, you all can definitely come back and see the progress. And we invite all alums to come back and see the progress. And as we close, we want to thank our alumni and supporters for joining us this evening. If you have any contact with any of our honorees, please make sure that you congratulate them and show them your appreciation. And we're very appreciative because OAA, as they say, OAA is in all of our DNA. And so definitely we got something coming. I'm gonna make sure I get your addresses from you. We have something that we're going to send you in the mail. So be looking out for that. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.